Okay, so hi everyone. So you must have seen our last session, which is fundamental for the block design pattern. Today we are going to see advanced. So what's the difference between this and the previous one? So just to give you the recap. So in the previous session, we learned how to make a basic block with the basic fundamentals, like creating a events, state manually. Also, we learn how fundamentally block works with some examples. We tried few examples as well. So today's session is going to be just a continuation of that. So if you haven't seen it, you can find it in the link or anywhere in the video if you're watching it later. But yeah, you can watch it on YouTube as well. But yeah, let's start with the advanced. So so start from where we left off. Okay. So these are the points it's basically which we are going to cover. So if you remember in the previous session, we only used the builder basically. So today we are going to learn how we can use listeners and how we can use a listen when and build when. So basically these are just an addition which is there to of the consumer. So basically if we are calling consumer, so we have seen how we can write builder, but when there are some cases where we have to use listener, build when, listen when. And then also we'll learn how to use the generators, as I have mentioned in the live last one, that best way of using Flutter is using the generators. So what are the generators? Basically, generator help us to make sure that boilerplate can be reduced. And also we'll learn about like multi-provider and how what is the right way when to use a multi-provider. And so basically all of it. So before we jump into, I would highly recommend you to go and watch the previous one. But let's begin with this one. Okay. Let me, yeah, just clean up a little bit. Okay. So if you guys remember, we last time built an application which looks somewhat like a buttons. I'll run it up for you guys, and then it has different functionalities based on four. First was the addition subtraction with the basic block, a basic stateful widget, and the other one. So today what we are going to see is how we can use a listener with the help of a proper example. Also, we are going to use listen when and build when. So let me just run it. Meanwhile, let me explain what is the listener. So consider a one scenario where user is going to be navigated once the login has been successful. For example, an application, a typical application where user logs in, and as soon as he logs in, he gets redirect to the particular home page. Correct. So to achieve that, we have something called as navigation, right? As you all know. But navigation we need to perform after certain event, right? So that event execution in a certain manner. For example, if login has happened successfully, then only we want to navigate user to something. In that case, we want to make sure that that particular event needs to be listened. So there comes the listener. Okay. So we'll see one example quickly where I will help you understand how login thing works and how we can make sure that it gets navigated to a different screen. Okay. So let me just start with making one screen. Let's say I'm making one folder auth. Okay. Inside auth, I'm just making one file called as login screen. Okay. So in this login screen, basically what we are going to make is simply add two box buttons. Add two boxes where we can enter ID and password, and we are going to just simulate with our static ID and password. But you can of course do it with the backend. And as soon as we get successfully, then we will navigate. So let's do that quickly. Okay. So first screen is gonna be now it's navigate like this login screen rather than the home screen which we were using previously. Okay. So in this, as I said, only thing I'm not gonna bother about the UI, but yeah, let me make some thing so we can start with. We add text field. text field 1, text decoration, sorry, decoration. So it will have a name, username, and a password. So basically these are our, like, basic login and password field. So this is going to be a password. I'm not going to like make it very fancy, but yeah, but just to understand how everything is gonna be. And also there will be a elevated button. It says login. Okay, good enough. I guess. Let's see. Okay, so this is our login kind of a UI where I can enter password, basically username and the password, and then when we hit login, if we get successful, then we'll be navigating to something. Okay, so let me make a block real quick. But it's the same. So yep, let me create one block for the same. That would be login block. Okay, inside that, if just to summarize, like we have used this kind of technique to create a block, basically an equitable, which makes sure that we are going to able to copy into the new state effectively, and also we are going to use the events to create an event. So let's do the same thing here. So let me create login underscore event first. Okay, so simply we'll create a login event class which is extended with equitable. Okay, and we are going to make sure that this will be a part of our main block. As you know, we want to make sure that imports will happen in a single file. Okay, then let's create a extension of this. Let's say on press login to make it simple. Okay, second. Okay, yes. Okay, so as you know, we can like extend this method here as well because it's ultimately been extended with equitable. Then let me create a constructor which holds the value. So let me declare few. Let's say string email and password. So basically we are going to take email and password as an input, and then we'll perform this particular event. Okay. Okay, so we have a simple event, which is a login event. As soon as we hit a login, we will execute some sort of code, and that will make sure user get login into our system or not. Based on that, of course, we'll do the navigation for the home page. Let me create a state for the same login underscore state dot dart. Okay. Okay. So now what we want to have in the state is firstly the controllers. We can keep it here. As I said, like in the last one, I mentioned that controller needs to reside within the state rather than having it referred within the class of the UI. And it has like in that sense we can even skip passing it from the event, but for this tutorial we'll pass it just for the simplicity. Okay, then again, like the structure doesn't change. How we created in the state, simply we'll create one state. We are not going to create a multiple state because that's a old way of doing it, but new way of doing it, it's simply create one state and use copy with to manipulate that particular state. Correct. Okay, And of course, we need this to be equitable, so I'll pass it here. Correct. Then let me make a login state. Login state extends equitable. Correct. Okay. So simply we'll need to have the properties which we'll be using. So one of them is a text edit controller. Okay. So first one is email controller. Another one would be a password controller. Correct. Okay. This is final. This is not going to change. This is also not going to be changed, or we are not going to take it as an input from anywhere. Correct. So we don't need anything in the constructor, so we can keep it as it's not necessary to have it inputted with the particular constructor. But yeah, we'll need to have one state where exactly going to make listener point to. For example, as we'll be having one variable which makes sure that pass like login has been successfully completed or not. So for that, let's say login completed. You can give it any name you want. Yeah, and the value for that is going to be false. Okay. So what I have changed here is in the previous one we were taking it within the constructor, but as you know, like we don't need it within the constructor. We are not going to initialize anything at the beginning, and addition to that, we are going to use those. I think in this block we did not initialize the controllers within the state, just to make it very relevant to understand. But yeah, it has to reside within the state. So yeah, so the reason behind it, like the particular logic, it has to be within the block. Nothing apart from the UI needs to be in the design side. So that is the main reason behind it. So let's make one copy with method quickly. Okay. So this is our method. Then within the copy with, so we are not going to use have different, like have more parameters to copy. So I'll make it simple. Okay, so this dot, sorry, my bad, boolean. Okay, so just we need to make sure that the login completed needs to be reinitialized. So that's why we need to keep it within the constructor. Yes. Otherwise, we need to manually have it change, which is not going to be a case because we need to then define it not final. So I don't want to make it more complicated with that. It's going to be required. Okay. So simply put, why it's saying, because the sum of fields are like here we are using as a final and some are not. Sorry, I'm not audible, is it? Okay. Yes. So there is a method in the block which is called as close. So similar to our stateful, we use dispose. There is a method for the same, so we can use that. I hope that answers. Okay. So far we have successfully created a state and the event. Okay. So now let me create a main thing, which is a block. Okay. So similarly, nothing is going to be changed within the block. Similar structure, like we want to make sure that the event and the state is going to be mapped and passed within the block, and then the whatever event we have defined, we are going to make a logic. We are going to write a logic and then based on that logic, we are going to put up an action. So I'll just copy and paste the code from here just to type it fast. Okay, we forgot to add them as a part of. I'm missing something. Okay, we can't is defined here. Okay, so all of it will be declared within the parent class. Okay, so now, sorry. So now all of it is settled. So here we will be using login event and login state. Okay, so here will be so cool. So let me just reiterate just to make it simple for everyone. Okay. So we have not done anything yet. We have just created this event, which is called as login on press login, and the state which we have created, and it has only one parameter, which is login completed. Okay. Okay. So let's define our event. So on press login. So here we can write the logic which is need to be performed on login. Okay. So let's have our static ID and password that needs to be compared. So let's say string email would be sachin@gmail.com. These are our constants that needs to be compared. Password will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Okay. Let's have one more parameter. Let's say whenever we let's display the error as well. So final boolean as error. Okay. We can have pass the message itself, but I'm just keeping one boolean. So if there is an error coming in, we'll just say like error or something went wrong here. That's all. Similarly, we need to pass it in the this. I hope there is no confusion as of now, but yeah. Okay. So all is settled. So we have like defined our password that needs to be compared and like email as well. Okay. So simply if the event dot email is not equal to email and password is event dot password is not equal to password, in that case basically we need to have some state that needs to be emitted where we'll have an error. Otherwise, if both of those are like correct, in that case uh, basically what we want to do is we need to have successfully completed and navigate into the new. So let me have it like this. So if both of these conditions true, let me have positive part first. Then if nothing, one of them condition doesn't satisfy, then we'll emit a state where we can show an error. Okay. So state dot copy with. So what we want to do is, if there is something wrong, then we'll make sure that it says false. And if there is something like if password and ID matches, then we'll say completed. True. So of course, I will also make like when we'll go on learning the advanced part of it, not just a listener and builder. I have some tips which I can give to make sure that there are some cases where the builder doesn't reload the state. So for that, I have some examples or some important tips which I can help you with. So this is very simple. So okay. So the main agenda of this is to learn how basically we can manage the listener. So let me create one more class and call it like login screen consumer. If you are confused with this, you can check our last session. Like I have explained in detail why I'm doing this and how to do this. Then we'll use block provider. I'll create a block. Name of the block is login block. Okay. Then we'll pass the children, which is going to be this one. Okay. Okay. So let me start with the UI, like just the builder part, and then we'll like raise our like make sure that we'll understand what the listener and consumer how and all those sorts work. So let me take the block builder. So login state and login. Okay. So let's just try what happens. Okay. Nothing has changed on the UI front as we have not done anything on that side. So let me call the like particular event. So again, I'll call block provider of context, basically which block. This off context is going to be very important when we are going to learn the multi providers. So yes, let me then add. Basically, the event name is login event dot sorry on yes login. Okay. Then email and password. So these are going to be our controller, which is going to be here. So state dot email controller. As you can see, I can access the state anywhere, right? I think you must have got that till now. So that way we can make sure that controller and everything reside within the block, not outside. And one of you asked the question how we can dispose it. So we have a method called close, which is overriding method, which we can use it to basically dispose if anything when the block get disposed. Okay. So this particular controller for email, and then let me have password as well. Okay, so we are all set. Let me see if we get the this particular event get called as soon as we hit on it. Let me have here. So yeah, so it is getting called. So I have not added any validations, but yeah, this all can be done. Everything like form key also reside within the state, and you can control the validation from the block. You can explore on your end, but let me just have it simple. Okay, so I'll just put up a message right here just to understand whether we are reaching to this point or not. Let's call it failed. Okay, so when I enter Sachin @gmail.com and then password 1 2 3 4 5 and let me add 7 first, then it's 1 7. Of course, we need to reload the block. Sachin @gmail.com, then 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So as you can see, so password was not correct, so it just didn't work. @gmail.com, password 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay. Now when I'll hit enter, so I need to make sure that I'll be navigated to some screen. Correct. So to do that, we need to listen to what action is happening. Correct. So there comes the block listener. So how we can construct the block listener is either we can use the block listener over the block builder, or we can directly use a block consumer. And I would say we should use a block consumer because there is very less state where you won't be needing a listener. And also, if you don't want to use a listener in that case, for example, let's consider it as a consumer. Okay, then the listener comes in a direct, like it's a default thing you need to define within the within this consumer structure, but also we can make sure that listener will be disabled. So how do we do that? Listen when. So we'll come to that a little bit later. So let me write one logic here. If the state dot is complete, so basically when it's going to be completed, we want to navigate, okay, to what? Home screen. So let me write the logic for that. So basically this is our home screen where we want to navigate to this as soon as our password get correctly validated. So screen, and then I will, okay, let me just reload and just try it if it works. If you have any questions you may ask. So let me try. See, as soon as we completely completed the login process, we get navigate to the screen. Okay, so now comes the part where as I said, like there could be a cases we don't want to listen. For example, there are cases we want to skip this listen part because we want to make sure that only on this condition we need to navigate. Correct. So let me add some print statement here just to see when it's get called. So let's say here, let me just reload. Okay. Yeah. So if I put in the wrong thing, okay. So if you can see here, get called here, right? So we want to basically avoid this. We don't want it to called for the every listener. So how do we call? Like we can call it as a listen when. So what listen when does is when we return false, then it listens to nothing. So for example, let's to keep it simple. I'll add it false here, and I'll do that. So listen will not be called at any moment. So I'll just have it here. As you can see, the here was not got called, right? Like here is not getting called. So what, how we can write this condition? We want to listen only when current of that particular value is completed is equal to, like basically we can say completed when whenever the login completed is true, we want to make sure that listen get called. So let's try now whether we get this here message and whether we can we'll get navigate to the screen. Okay, see, like we got done and here called. So this is where the listen when comes, but more handy when sometimes we just are going to represent some alert. We don't want a builder to be called. In that case, we can use a builder when, build when. So basically, build when works same. If, for example, if current, okay, so let's say build every time. Okay, build every time, but if current dot has error, then in this situation we don't want the UI to be built. In that case, we can say false. So in that case, this builder block will not be called. So there could be a case you want to show a toast, then you can show it from the block side as well, right? So in that case, you don't have to rebuild the entire build. So that saves a resource in a way. So this is how the listen when and build when comes. You can break down into comments or you can ask me how it works. I'll definitely answer it. I want to make sure that we also cover the advanced part of Bloc. So I'm just gonna make sure that we stop on this basics and we'll move to the next one. I hope like this makes sense to everyone, and like let's jump to the next part of it. Okay. So what is like the main thing why we want to shift to the advanced part of the Bloc is to just minimize the boilerplate we need to write in order to make a any block. Okay. So for doing it, we'll use this example only. Okay. And let me have it again home screen here. Okay. So let me just have this as a backup, or I'll just remove it for now. Okay. So let's just start from understanding what is the freeze. Okay. So basically it helps us to generate a particular class, or it can be used for even creating a model, which is we use a freeze package, we call this a DTO. So basically DTO is a data transfer object, which is advanced part of the model because it comes directly with everything. Basically it comes with copy with and all of the methods. So as you see, like, in a state we create a copy with and everything by ourselves, right? So there are some limitations which we can't create. For example, if we want to make sure that list doesn't get edited, so we want to make sure that it is non-editable list. So all of this parameter can be set with the help of freeze. So freeze help us with its annotation to make sure that we are going to make the boilerplate less and have more effective code. So let me introduce you to some of the packages that is going to be needed in particular this video. So first of all, we'll be needing is a freeze. So freeze annotation. So I hope you understand the annotations. So annotations are the like for example, override. Override is an annotation that denotes what the procedure is going to be, and the annotation help us. I mean the generator to generate the code based on what the annotation been used. Okay. So one of them is a freeze annotation. Then if you want to run a runner build, then we need to have a build runner. So build runner is a generic kind of a package which we generally use to make sure that we can generate a system generated code. Second. Okay, so there is conflict. This is okay. Then of course freeze. Okay, so why I'm adding them into the dev dependency? Of course, like we don't want that that needs to be copied when we are going to make the build, as it's not going to be used on the release mode. Okay, because it's help us to generate, and this freeze annotation reside within the code. That's why I kept it where in the dependencies. Okay, so we don't no longer going to be needing the equitable, so we can remove it. But as we have some other class which will not be okay with that, so I'm just keeping it as it. Okay, so how do we create? Like, do we actually don't need to create a file? So yes, we don't need it. So for that, we can use this extension called as Bloc. It helps us to create the block with the help of it can create a typical block as well, but it is also compatible with the freeze package. So let me use this particular extension. You can find it on the marketplace here. Okay, so let me go through like how we can create a block with this one. So you will get an option called as creating a new block. So let me have it. So we will call it login block. So basically we can call it login. So you just need to have a class name over here. Okay, so it generally creates a block, event and state for us, and it is embedded with the freeze. If you have that package added, it will smartly identify that, hey, you have a freeze package, we'll use the block with the freeze. So like we can rename this as a login. Okay, login block, I would say, to just to keep it all same. So as you can see, this event has been already created. This particular block structure is also there. Then there comes the state. Okay. Okay. Then in this one, basically, we can directly use this initialize, but there is some additional things which we can do in order to make sure that that particular block is going to. One second, let me just turn off the phone because it's getting buzzed. So in addition to that, we want to make sure that we can define everything related to state and everything within the state itself. So we can use something called as creating a constructor out of it, and then using this initialize method to use that constructor. So let me just start with something. So let me have one command. So this particular command is to have it run with the build runner. So it comes with the build runner. So if you go on to its official spec file, you can find this command, and this help us to create any kind of generator, not just a freeze. So let me hit it, just analyzing whether everything is there. And as you can see, it created a freeze package for us, which we are going to use in order to make sure that, like all the boilerplate will be handled by this. You don't have to understand it deep, but it has all of it. The copy with, you can find it here. Everything will be here. Okay, so let me just come to where we can initialize the state effectively. Okay, so this particular method we are going to use to initialize, but on top of that, we want to make sure that we create a constructor for that. So let me rewrite it all. Let me have factory here. Then we need to have this particular class. One second. Then I'll explain it what it's all about, but yeah, just bear with me for a second. Okay. Okay. Let me explain what I have done. Okay. So we have created this particular constructor where we can have everything defined here as a one go, and then we can use this initialize method to make sure that we initialize all of it. Okay. So just to break down, in the previous block, we were creating this kind of a state where we can have it initialize when the constructor is going to be created. But in this one, we are going to use this method initialize to initialize whatever we want to initialize. So we can have it pass from anything from here. For example, let's use is login completed, pass from here, and we can use it to this one. And we need to make sure that it is going to be required. So we'll have it here, and this value comes from the initializer. Okay, so nothing is as dramatically changed as it was in the previous one, but all of the copy weight and everything is going to be there with the help of freeze. So nothing changes as such, but there are some little bit change in order to make sure we reduce the boilerplate. So just to understand, we just created we just added one extension which help us to create the block, and we just need to have it this particular line. You can use direct initialization, but I would recommend to use this constructor. That is all we need to write in terms of writing the code. Okay, so similarly, we'll have a login state as input. Okay, and then we can pass this to our block creation. Okay. So as you can see, your event is also get created. If you follow this, you created you will all of it will be created for you. You don't have to worry of separately having created those event and all. Okay. Okay, so let me start with creating our event, which is login on login pressed. Similarly, I'll add it here on login press. Okay, so this particular event needs to be point from here. So nothing as such we have changed. We have just created with this particular event, and similar logic will go in. So I'll just copy from here and I'll just have it here. Okay. So in this particular event, we need to make sure that we pass values, right? So how do we do it? Simply, we'll use it how we defined it there. So this is particularly this methods create the class and constructor everything for us, and with the it also has the copy with and all of the method with the help of freeze. So we just need to define what will be the variable, which is email and then password. I'll show you where it has been created within the freeze package. You can see in the freeze package, you can see all of it is going to be maybe when map, maybe or null. It has like it creates all the possible things which we might need in particular operation. So here we go. Okay. So the variable is login completed is going to be true, and here if we haven't declared this, so I'll declare this one. This has a error. Yeah. Okay, cool. So similar thing which we did there, we achieved it here as well. So let me have those controller as well. So email controller and then password. Okay. So I'll just delete this old block. We don't need that. I'll just map this block to whatever screen which we had in the past. So yes, password controller. Sorry. Okay. So all of it is set for us to write on the UI side. Let it create a file for us. Okay. So in the login screen, I'll just undo the code and yeah. See, everything what we have wrote like it's already compatible here because of course we are not changing anything principally, but rather just creating just advanced version of the block which we used to create. So we can pass some parameters within this initialize function, which will be initialized when the block gets initialized, correct? So it is very handy. There are some cases when we want to pass something like, we want to pass some initial parameters which we receive and then we reach to the screen. For example, if you are going to have one product screen, then you pass the product ID within the screen in the constructor, and that ID can be passed to the block with this initialize help. So yes, so now let me have, so how do we call that particular event is basically the parent name login event dot whatever event we want to call it from. So this is how it's going to be. It's so let me just hit it and let's see where we have reached. Okay, let me just have the login page here again. Okay, so I'll just I hope I'm able to break it down to the level where it would be easy and comparative to what we have learned in the last one. Then only part we need to see is basically how multi-provider works in a way and where to use it. Okay, so let me just say gmail.com and then password, which is the wrong one. Then it will be filled. Then let me have the correct one. Successfully. Okay, my bad. Okay, so it's successfully navigated. So this is how the advanced block is going to be. It's very simple to make. It uses a freeze package. So let me just reiterate and summarize what we did. So we just added the freeze annotation, which makes sure that the annotation, like the whatever we want to initialize and we want to define will be there. So I'll give you an example how we can customize this. So let me have it one example. Okay. So let me have one list here. let's say required list of, let's say string, and let's say names. Okay. As soon as I save this, so freeze package will of course make this particular list for us within the freeze. So let's go through that and see what it created for us. Okay. So as you can see, it created a list called as names, correct? Okay. But 1 second. Yeah. So we find that variable name. Okay. So this particular name list has been created here. So this particular list can have a different properties, right? Like we want to make sure that this list is not going to be, modified later. So all of these properties, you can find it within this particular annotation with the help of definitions. So for example, there you want to make the, make the collections unmodified. So if we say false, then it will make sure that it can be modified. Otherwise, all the collections, basically lists or anything that is part of the collection, will not be modified. By default, it is a parameter, it has a value of true, but we can consider make it so that you can modify those names of any list you want. So let me just give a better example. So for instance, let's say you have a list. So initially you make the list with the name of Sachin, Vasu, and all of the names. And you want to make sure that block cannot modify it. So you can say it's false, true. So whatever you are going to define when it's going to be initialized, then it reside as it is. It won't be modified. So it's not just that you have so many examples. If you want to create a to JSON or not, you want to create this when method, you want to create the copy with. If I say false copy with, then it will not create a copy with for us, as you can see. So it can help you if you don't want to use all of it, you can reduce the file. But yeah, as I say, like this file is not something we touch, so you don't have to worry of what exactly it does. But if you want to do specific operation, you can modify with it. So just to make sure that your bytecode can reduce. But generally we don't do it. But yeah, I was just giving you an example how we can further modify and use the freeze. So we use this freeze to create this state, we use this to create this particular event, and of course block doesn't change. So if you can see, the only thing that has been same is basically a block, which is a good part. Previously, when we used to create a block with the typical method, it used to look entirely different than what it is. So yeah, this is about how we can create a block with the freeze and advanced concept of it. So there is one more thing which we want to understand is called as a multi-provider. Okay. So basically, what is a multi-provider? So let me just start with an example itself. Okay. So we have this home screen, correct? So in the home screen, as you can see, we have this particular two classes, two particular blocks, which is a basic, and the other one which we created was, with the help of, addition subtraction. So all of these blocks are going to be declared within the main class itself. So there could be a possibility where you want to use the functionality of one block, calling it from some other block. For instance, let's say you are making sure that you are making a full-fledged a login and sign up application. It has everything in it. So you want to make sure that particular login credentials or user details can be accessed from anywhere within the tree of the Flutter. Then what you can do is you can simply have this multi block provider initialized in the one go. So what it does is basically it helps us to initialize the block whichever is going to be there at the beginning of it. Let's say I would say I want to make sure this particular block, instead of declaring it from here, I can declare it directly within this. So it takes basically all of the block in a one go. So you can find it here as well. So simply like this. Okay. Second. I don't use it frequently though, but yeah. Let me just copy from here. I'm messing up, but I just wanted to give you an idea when we can use it. I think, anyways, like we can use it in order to make sure that all of the block we can initialize from the one go. Think I missed on something. I don't want to, stretch on that. But yeah, this is the use case. So why we can use it and how we can, when we should not use it. For every block, we should not use this multi-block provider. You can find it within like, where the official block is there. But yeah, so advantage of having it is, to have it access of any block from anywhere, but it comes with the merit of activating that block when one go. You can also restrict to initialize particular block on the particular screen. So this is not going to be always a good situation or always good practice to begin with. So yes, so just to conclude on everything, uh, so today we learn about like how we can use listeners, then build when and listen when. So these are part of the original block and also part of the advanced block itself. And then we also learn how we can use freeze, and also we understand like how generator works, what are the advantages, how we can reduce the boilerplate with it. And then lastly we like get just an hold of multi-provider. You can like understand and like just find it on their official site like how to initialize it. But yeah, in a way you need to provide all the blocks here, and all of the residing trees can access with the help of block provider context. For example, if you want to access particular file, uh, particular state, particular method from it, you can have it like this. Or if you want to call a particular event from anywhere, you can call it like this. So yes. So this is all of it. So this is the advanced block which we typically use. And uh, as we don't use a multi-provider that often, so I kind of messed up there. But yeah, this is all of it. I hope you like this session and I could able to like get you something more in the blog. And do let me know if you have any feedback. So next week we are going to cover a topic where we can understand the how the centralized navigation works. So it will help you to do the navigation without the context which we use for making an application. So thank you so much for joining in, and I hope you had a enjoyable session. Yes.
Thank you, Sachin. Thank you for the session.
Thank you for
Thank you. Yeah,
our
actually, I have
next.
a question. It is
Yes,
related to annotation.
yes, yes,
So
tell me.
actually, I want to know ki how we create annotations and like how it actually works behind the scenes. We just keep on writing at the rate
Hmm.
free, right? At the rate JSON annotation and those
Yes,
kind
yes,
of things. Can you help me with
yes.
that? With some
Yeah,
clarification?
yeah. So if you want, I can brief it out with the next session. So do like I know the concept of it. I honestly don't create my own self, but I know the how actually it works. Basically, annotation help us to guide us to the pro part of it. But if you want a brief analysis on that, so I'll make sure that in the next session I'll come up with that. If that okay.
Yeah, that will be helpful. If you can just give 15-10 minutes of session on that,
Yes,
that will
yes,
be actually
sure,
great.
sure,
Thank
sure.
you, Sachin, for this.
Because yes, thank you, and thank you for joining for today's session as well. Yes,
My pleasure.
yes. Bye, 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 everyone.
Bye. Bye.